your first idea to the gallery? What kind of project you imagined when you are in Paris? But obviously, you already visited here last year, so you know the space exactly how it looks like.
At the time of the visit, because I knew about the publication, specifically the one with all the pictures of the first series of exhibitions. I was impressed by this kind of, I don't feel really the dimension of the space, but I was impressed, and I have the sentiment it was a very big space. In fact, when I come and I visit the first time, I feel it's big, but not so big, but the question is the proportion are quite nice proportion, 10 by 10, and I think it's 5.5 meters, something like that. And it's quite stable space. And I remember the first time when I come, it's really the structure, the concrete structure, who impressed me. I like it very much, this kind of very simple grid, this frame. And my first idea, I have many ideas for the, after that, usually I start on many desires. And, but my first idea was to keep just one module, one square, and to try to generate a kind of, I can't say it organic, but a kind of something in between physical or ergonomic extension for the people who can go out of this impressive roof and to be just in contact with one of the elements of this grid. And after that, I start to think about materials, about what kind of sentiment I will give to the installation. And I start to think about plastic and this kind of membrane in plastic. Maybe because I was, in a way, a bit fascinated by all these stories of ghosts, of ectoplasma, things I saw when I was younger, when I was kid in the Japanese animation. All these imaginary things, I'm very closed. So I would like to transcribe. My idea was to transcribe something like that. But at the end, I was not so sure. And also in China, I did this project with the belt coming from the roof and suspending, because one thing fascinates me is always about architecture or space or human desire. It's this desire to make the things floating or to keep a plane. It's always a kind of magical moment when the body is floating in the water, or when the kids look, or when we saw astronauts or cosmonauts floating in the air. This kind of strange moment. And I think I work like with obsessions, is many times putting one level more of complexity or approaching different ways, but always with kind of same obsessions. And here, maybe because it was Japan, and I'm very impressed by all this, or very, or my many, in a way, my background came maybe in part directly from Japanese animation. I have this desire, and then I forget a bit this idea. And I start to think come back to Paris and I start to think about what can I do, and also this story of the selling. And something impressed me each time I came to Japan was this coexistence between a very youth, a kind of super contemporary youth people who keep everything coming from everywhere, very connected to technologies, about new fashion, about everything coming. And this kind of second level of society, of people we met in the street, of course normal levels, but so these young people overuse, I mean, over consummator, contemporary, and this very specific category of the salarymen we saw in the street, in the subway, sleeping, and this kind of, and I'm always thinking about, is this sonic youth people will be like that in 10 years after the moment of university, a bit like if you go to school, primary school, you have the uniform, then you forget your uniform, you try to find a new uniform, and then society keep you again, or the work world take you again in another uniform, and something like uniformity. And as my background professional is architecture, for me it's always a question about the standardization or normality. I mean, also the uniform, it's a kind of normality. So as an architect, when you try to produce space, most of the time you try to escape of this normality, of this to the different uniforms. So what is this idea of uniform in architecture? Most of the time is kind of idea of the generic space. So like I don't know, the type of furnitures you have for the working space, the ceilings, the moquette, I don't know what is the name, but it means the floor, softness floor, or for the housing, the type, everything is really normative, so it's different uniforms, and the architects usually take different things and try to exist, finding new ways, but most of the time architects try to find new ways, different ways of this thinking, but always, most of the time, they come back again because question of cost and also of habit and desire from the clients. So it's kind of norm also. And usually the critique about that, it's against the normality, against the uniformity, against the uniform, because this is not original, this is not interesting, and etc. And I start to think about this, how I call sonic youth population, and about these salarymen, like two opposite points, and I start to have this kind of sentiment. Maybe uniform is something, a kind of not a trick, but a kind of powder in the eyes of the society. And I think it was last time, the second time I came back to Japan after the visit of Kitakyushu, and it was, oh no, we go to, I remember we go to Tokyo for the visit for the symposium. And one night with the Chinese, the Chinese architect was not here, so maybe I was only. But we were together in the street, and we passed, somebody mentioned, this is a manga shop for adult people. And I remember I have this, I'm totally fan of mangas and cartoons and everything. So for me, what means manga for adults, a shop specialized in manga for adults. So I go there, people look at me a bit like, what are you doing? So I go there, and in fact it was kind of sex shop, book shop for sex, many things for adult, I mean, X-rated in a way. And I was really surprised about the fact all the clients were these salarymen. I was a bit upset about, but in a way, it was not the fact it was salaryman surprised me. It was the way this point was this kind of normal way to go there, like a very simple point, like let's go there. And it was not the neighborhood was not something like a bit obscure. It was it looked like people working for good companies with good level of the thing. And after that, I observed in the subway also the people reading. And in my point, I start to make this hypothesis, maybe through, it's a very simple hypothesis and it's quite an evidence, but it's most of the time we are so involved in our appreciation and direct point to describe the things and put the things in some box, like the selling, original selling. We used to say salarymen are boring and stupid people and that don't have personalities. So I start to make this hypothesis, maybe through the standardization, maybe this is the word standardization, but more about architecture. This homogenization of the uniform, of the habits, of the consummation. Maybe there is really individual, so maybe fantasy or kind of personality exists, and how we recognize our individuality don't need to be different by the uniform or by the appearance. And I decided to work on this idea, to try to find a way through elements of architecture. So I come back to these elements of the office, for me, very boring elements, and just try to make this hypothesis transform in spatial situations and with something some elements of construction, normalization of the office buildings. Can we produce something who create a kind of emotion or a kind of, before I said fantasy, but it's not the word, so maybe, I don't know, but it's a French word, fantaisie, not in English as fantasme in Français. But why not also generate fantasy? Why not? So generate a kind of, can through the, can I produce with simple elements, standard elements of office buildings, can I generate a kind of, let's say, poetry? Voilà. It's the way of the project. After, there is also one thing. So it's not necessary to describe the idea of the project, but I can say the title came from that. So Salaryman's Dream, because Salaryman's Dream also dream, like us, like me, like everybody. And for me was also with something very ordinary, something very standard. How can we, in a way, erase the space of the gallery? How can we? The word is too strong, but in a way, why not lobotomize the space of the gallery? with something ordinary? Is it necessary to make something extraordinary? Is it ordinary became extra at one moment when it's delocalization or transformation? There is all these questions. There is more questions, but these all questions are here like a petit, small experience. Like, it's also like, I like the idea to produce an installation as an experience, and also this experience should be the word in English I don't know, but participative, or of a kind of generating a kind of instabilization, physical instability. Can we produce this physical instability? The experience, the hypothesis for an body experience come from just this point. Can we destabilize with simple, very simple elements where the people is not who? I try to be clear, to explain it clearly. With something, for me, this space, it's not a part. I don't want to produce, in this case for Kitakyushu, a participative space. I want to produce a contemplative space in the idea of can a standard space produce with standard elements, can we generate kind of contemplation and desire? So after that, if it's contemplative, you don't participate. Your body is not involved on it. But can it? So the question for the hypothesis, experimental hypothesis, is this active, contemplative, active space? Can it produce a kind of alteration of our physicality? That's the point. So the experience will be, we will see. I don't know. So this is an experience for me.